Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the City of Madeira Beach Hurricane and Sea Turtle Expo. Quick question. When does sea turtle nesting season begin? May 1. When does hurricane season begin? Yeah, well, actually, I think it's year round now. It's been changed. It's either El Nino, La Nina, Los Hijos, La Mamá, El Papá. I don't know. Either way, we're always susceptible to dangerous, stormy weather year round. However, for about 7 months of the year, we really do enjoy our slice of paradise. So thank you all so very much for coming out this Saturday morning. We're going to pass it over here in just a moment to our speakers, where you will learn and be dazzled on what to do before the storm arrives, what to do during the storm. And remember, the number one rule, the only rule of hurricanes: when an evacuation order is issued, everybody leave the island. Get the HE double hockey sticks off the island. Leave. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 off the island. It is for everyone's safety. Anybody has any questions or doubts about that? Ask a bunch of residents down south. Or I was a junior at the University of Miami back on August the 24th, 1992. Does anybody remember what happened that day? Hurricane Andrew hit Florida. It looked like a bomb exploded at Coral Gables on the campus of the University of Miami, and that wasn't even near the center of the storm. That was a wind event. One other quick tidbit about hurricanes: each storm is unique. Each storm is super, super unique. And the number one response I get, well, yeah, they're all named differently. Of course, they're going to be different. No, each storm can be a massive rain event, it could be a massive wind event, it could be moving at 20 miles an hour, it could be moving at 3 miles an hour. All of you who have been out here, I'm sure, are familiar with that. Keep that in mind. Could a storm turn in a few minutes? Yes. Can a storm intensify from 70-mile-an-hour winds to 200-mile-an-hour winds? I think that happened last year off the Mexican coast. So anything can happen. Important thing is to be prepared. I'm Robin Gomez, the city manager for the city of Madeira Beach. Again, thank you for coming out. And I'm going to turn it over to, we'll start with, actually, why don't all of you introduce yourselves, and then we'll start with the chief giving a presentation.
Good morning. I'm Megan Wetfer, the Public Works Director.
I'm Ginny Rowan. I'm the Community Development Director.
Marcy Forbes, I'm the Community Development Engineer.
Lisa Foster. I'm the Floodplain Administrator for Pinellas County.
Good morning, Clint Belk, Fire Chief, Madeira Beach Fire Department. What we're going to do is kind of go down the row with before the storm, during the storm, then after the storm, and everybody will speak on their own departments. So for fire EMS, before the storm, you should definitely secure your outside furniture, trim any loose branches or anything that's on the ground, anything that could become a projectile during strong wind conditions. Fuel up your vehicles, your gas cans, portable generators. Stock up on supplies such as batteries, candles, non-perishable foods, bottled water, toiletries, etc. This is pretty important. Have an evacuation plan ready. Make arrangements with friends or family members to have somewhere to evacuate to. Shelters will be open, but during major incidents, they can be crowded and pretty uncomfortable. So try to make arrangements prior to the storm. Don't do it the day before landfall. And something that is kind of a rumor, they say that all the drawbridges will be raised and locked in the up position. That is not accurate. They will be locked in the down position, because that would obviously hinder evacuation if they were locked in the up position. So we'll put that rumor to rest right there. And take pictures. You can do all this stuff now. Take pictures of anything that's valuable, pictures, inventory, document anything that's of value, because after a storm, you're going to show the insurance company a picture of a destroyed refrigerator or television when you just bought it and it was brand new a couple months ago, but you don't have that to proof, And with that, I will turn it over to Lisa Foster.
Thanks, Chief. So they asked me to talk about after, but I'll say a couple things about the before. So I'm just going to piggyback on what Chief was saying about documenting everything. So you want to go room by room in your house, take inventory, take pictures of everything, all your walls and all your stuff, serial numbers of your large appliances, and just upload that file to a cloud, all your pictures to a cloud service so that you have it. When something happens and you need to see what was there before and prove to the insurance company, it'll be date stamped so that they'll know that you did indeed have that before the storm. So please, please document everything. Make sure that you understand what's covered by insurance. Homeowners insurance and flood insurance are two different things. Your flood insurance has two different pieces too. You've got your coverage for your contents. So if you're renting a place, you would just get that contents coverage. If you own a place, you could have the building coverage and the contents coverage, or just the building coverage. And that's for you to decide. You can get different max limits, different deductibles. So work with your insurance agent to figure out what is covered, what is not covered, and what those deductibles, bringing them up and down, might do, or your max limits might do to the rate. Because if you think that you don't have that much stuff in the house and they're trying to give you $100,000 worth of contents, you might not need that. So you could lower that to $20,000 coverage for your contents, and that will lower your premium. So work with your insurance agent on that. Make sure you understand what's covered. Make sure you have all those pictures before.
Thanks, Lisa. So one of the things with us in the permitting process, some things to think about that we look for after the storm are appraisals and surveys of what you currently have. Ideally, now is a great time to have those to get your property appraised prior to the storm coming through, because that does impact the money that you're allowed to spend towards your rebuild. So to have that ahead of time is going to be valuable, because a lot of people will be scrambling afterwards to get these. And if you already have one, that's a great idea. Another thing is with our building code, we have certain allowances for structures as they were built prior to our current zoning. So if you have a survey of your property and we know exactly where your home sat at before the storm, we can help work with you on where you can rebuild and be a little more lenient than, let's say, what some of the setback requirements would be now. So those are some of the documents that you can have in place ahead of time: appraisals and site survey.
All right, so Marcy and I are in the same department, so we'll be covering kind of the same things. Also with the appraisal, kind of piggybacking off of what Marcy was talking about, the FEMA 50%. So if you're not aware of what this is, the building department, planning department, we can approve you for permits up to 50% of your depreciated value of your home if you're on grade, if you don't meet those floodplain standards. So if your home is not elevated to the current floodplain standards. So it's important to keep this in mind, especially when hurricane season is upon us. Just knowing what your FEMA 50% is, we do allow for private appraisals, just what Marcy was talking about. We count this as a 1-year cumulative. So you cannot exceed 50% of the value of your depreciated structure within that 1-year time frame. So it's just important to have that number in your head and try not to max it out before hurricane season.
All right, good morning. So what I'm going to be speaking to is going to be Madeira Beach residents only. So I'm not sure if everyone in this room is a Madeira Beach resident. For us, for the Public Works Department, one of the biggest things that we have prior to a storm is obviously the sandbagging situation. I am going to be meeting with Pinellas County. I think we're going to try to do a county-wide sandbagging operation, so we're all on the same page, because everyone kind of goes a little bit rogue whenever that happens. For us, we are going to be doing a pre-hurricane season sandbagging day for Madeira Beach residents. We don't have that date yet, but we will put that out. During right whenever, and we'll say if there's a emergency listed, then I will open up the public works yard and we will have employees there to hand out the bags. Sand is always available for Madeira Beach residents. So if you want to come and fill up your sandbags now, just let me know. I have it in my public works yard. Also, we do brush pickup every Wednesday. So please do not wait until the last moment to trim your trees. We have a lot of residents that will trim right before or as a storm is coming, and then we are not able to get out quick enough to pick up that brush. So then it ends up all over our roads, clogging our storm drains, not allowing those to flow properly. So that is probably one of the biggest things for Public Works. Yes. That is correct. Not any longer. At our public works yard over on 150th Avenue, where the municipal marina is, same property. We'll have, whenever that happens, hopefully not this year, we will have signage up that will lead you in. And then I think I'm also gonna put a sand station over at Bicentennial that will just be available. But unfortunately, whenever we have things over there, the landscapers tend to come in and take it for their jobs versus our residents. So May 22nd, there is a sandbag center that's gonna be set up for the Seminole Hurricane Preparedness Expo. Okay, so that is on the county's website, but we can also post that information for you as well. All right, I guess we're now gonna go into during.
Okay, so now we'll transition to the during phase of the storm. Again, speaking for public safety, if an evacuation order is issued and you choose to stay, I hate to be this blunt, but be aware this is an unnecessary risk that you are taking, and you're going to be held responsible for the decision you make to stay. And again, I hate to be that blunt, but we speak about there's going to come a point where fire rescue, it's not the risk versus the reward is not worth putting our firefighters in danger. So there'll come a point where I make that decision. It's called go or no go. And there's certain parameters that have to be met, whether it's wind speed or just flooding and gaining access to the residents. And if we just can't get to you, we cannot get to you. So again, I just urge you to heed those warnings about an evacuation. If you do experience floodwaters, turn off your main breaker, kill the power to your house. If you have a generator that powers your house, not a portable one. If you have one of the bigger generators, disconnect the power to that as well, or flip the breaker, whatever it may be. There will come a time when risking firefighter safety is not worth it, and we will cease all emergency response. So if your house starts to flood and spark because water levels have reached your outlets, you can call 911. Whether somebody shows up or not, that's a whole nother issue. So again, if an evacuation order is issued, please heed that warning.
Thank you. And for the smaller storms where they give you an opportunity to evacuate, they open some shelters, and you know that we have, I don't know, 2 to 5 feet of surge, which is sort of what's been projected for these last, 3 floods in 3 years that this area has seen. So if you see that, you can be aware that there is a likely possibility that you will have water in your home if you're on the ground and you haven't sealed everything up to be able to prevent that water from getting in. So if you are home and it's not an evacuation, mandatory evacuation, and water starts seeping into your house, turn off your power. And I'm going to hand it back to him to talk about that in a second, but turn off your power. And before you do that, go ahead and check all your breakers so you know what goes to what. Because if you're not expecting that much water in the house and you have power just on the ceiling, it may be okay to leave that on as long as it's not on the ground and it's not going to charge the water that's in the house. Get up on something high, don't walk through the water, and just wait for that water to recede. And, just know that if there wasn't an evacuation and nobody has told you that it's not safe, then you should be okay. It should go back out. But if they've told you to get out and you're still there, it could be very dangerous. So please, please heed those evacuation orders. I'm going to hand it back to Chief about electricity.
So again, I touched on it a little bit. Shut off your main breaker if you start to experience flooding. I believe the outlets are 18 inches above the floor. So all you need is 19 inches, 18 and a half inches of water before outlets will start sparking. Your outlets will smoke. Your people call 911. We'll respond. And what that does, that also taxes other municipalities, because when a structure fire response comes out, it's a minimum of 5 fire trucks that are coming. So we have 1. So now we're pulling resources from the city of Seminole, Treasure Island, if they're not already busy. And it's a trickle down effect to where Clearwater units are starting to respond here. So it's also taxing other municipalities. So again, I'd rather you evacuate, but if you choose to stay, just make sure if it does start to flood, you flip that main breaker.
And don't go outside. It's going to be deeper outside and there will be projectiles from folks that didn't secure their outdoor things. So it's safer inside. Just climb up on top of something and make sure the power's off.
And to that point, the chief talked a little bit about having whole house generators. While I would like to think anybody who has that properly permitted it, I know that there are probably a few that may have been installed over a weekend. So if you are running a generator that maybe wasn't inspected by a building official, it could possibly be located closer to a door or window than it should be. Just be aware, make sure your carbon monoxide detectors are working because that would help with that. And if you do smell any feedback from the generator, that's not good. You definitely want to keep the house aired out. There are, instances where this can become worse than the flood and the water itself with people losing their lives due to this kind of situation. So just keep that in mind if you do have a generator. And also, I think sometimes there's a false sense of security if you live in an elevated home. Just remember you do have a car that is at grade. If it does get flooded, it may not crank. You may not be able to get off the island after the storm. Plus, there is debris floating around too that will hit your car and damage your car too. So also think in addition to, your life safety and the elevation of your home, you do have a car that may not work after the storm. So it is important to evacuate when we do have the floodwaters coming in.
The only item that I have to add to this is when there are flooded waters, as Lisa and both chief, please do not go out and tread in those waters. There is things in those waters that you do not want to touch. Please do not get your kayaks out and go kayaking down the road. It's not safe, not at all, especially if there is down power, then there have been several, I think, nearby deaths about that. So, and then I'm going to let Deputy Snyder talk.
Good morning. I'm Deputy Snyder. I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm one of the community policing deputies in the city. I have a partner that works with me, and then we have the patrol deputies that work out there 24/7. Just remember, we work. The sheriff gives us direction if it's unsafe. So if we get the order to leave the island because either the winds are too high or the tidal surge is coming, we will leave the island. So you have to understand that when they say the evacuation, please evacuate. We had issues in the last storm where people didn't evacuate. The tides were coming up and they had to be rescued. Coming from Normandy to 140th, their high trucks stalled out and now they were walking in, thigh-high water. So they saw the tides coming up and they created more of an issue. Then we had to deploy high water rescue vehicles. I think the fire department had to go in there. But my Tahoe doesn't sit much taller than your car. So it doesn't have very high ground clearance.
And Deputy Sheriff, where were or Chief, the people who were rescued in the high water vehicles, where did they end up? Publix at between 2:30 in the morning and 5 in the morning. Guess who was at Publix at that time? No one. It was closed. It was dark. It was dreary. It was scary. No, it wasn't scary. You don't want to do that. So the bottom line is, again, please leave the island when an evacuation order. None of the individuals that were rescued, they were happy that they were out of the water. They were not happy they were isolated and essentially abandoned at Publix.
Yeah, I think there was a system to be set up to transport these people to a shelter. It didn't work so well. They ended up waiting hours for transport. Yeah. Just remember, it's safer to leave and then be on that side where you're nice and high because you're not going to get out of your car. Since it's a low car, it's going to stall. You're going to be stuck. You're walking back to your house or out of the city. If somebody wants to stay on the island and try to loot your house, they're going to loot your house. That's the bottom line either. But there aren't any because if it's not safe for us to be out here by wind and water, we are leaving. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
If I'm going to be totally honest with you, sandbags don't stop the water. The best way to use a sandbag, it will slow down the water,
Slow down.
but If you put some type of tarp or even like Visqueen behind it and then stack the bags on top of it, I think the biggest issue that most people overfill sandbags. You're supposed to be able to throw a sandbag where it lays flat. A lot of people think that you have to fill it to where it's 50 pounds. It's ineffective. It's definitely not going to work. At our sandbagging operation, we call it 3 scoops. 3 scoops is usually pretty perfect with our bags. You want it to lay flat when you throw it. So you want it to, well, you're supposed to throw them on the ground so that they do lay flat, and then you're supposed to stagger them as you put them on top of each other. They're probably too full. If you lay them, correct, because then water can seep through as you're placing them. So if you come over to the public works yard, we'll definitely tell you if your bags are too full as you're filling them. Yeah, if you tape Visqueen up and on the ground and then place the bags on top, it will help. Duct tape. Absolutely.
As long, it might not stick though.
Or there's.
Use
Yeah,
the microphone.
you can, yeah.
Yes, we have them right outside. Yeah, remember to visit the tent, the tables out here. They have some information and a few items to give away, including sandbags, right out here on the veranda. I feel like Wink Martindale or Bob Barker. Which one?
Bob Barker.
Bob Barker, okay. Microphone, sorry. Yes, so come, I think they've already mentioned Tuesday, April the 23rd, right here, 6:30 PM, 1830 hours. We will have a demonstration regarding methods, items, goods to further flood-proof your home. Any update? Come on down.
So are you Bob Barker or Wink? I'll be the other one. Our flood seminar on Tuesday night, these are actual ideas, products that have worked, have passed the mustard, and they will keep, if you do them, they will help keep the water out of your house. A lot of do-it-yourself ideas, as well as products that you can buy or have people install if you're so inclined. But we'll go over sandbags on Tuesday night. My personal opinion, they don't work. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. So yeah, there's a flyer at each table. If you're interested, please come back Tuesday at 6:30 PM right here. And we'll have more food, by the way, also. Where did Mr. Queen go? Mayor Queen. Every time he sees me, he goes, there's always food. I always see you around food. Well, that's one way to encourage people to attend. We'll give you, and it'll be different food. It won't be Publix. So. Except they didn't have it ready at 9 AM. I was disappointed. Sorry. Anything?
All right. So we'll transition into now the storm has passed and we're in the after effects of it. And to their point as well, you can turn on Bay News 9 and you'll see people in Shore Acres in their kayaks going down the street. That water has sewage in it. That is not clean water. Do not go in that water. It's not safe. All right, so now we're in the after effects of the storm. If you flipped your main breaker, wait to turn it back on to make sure the floodwaters have receded. If you have that home-based generator, make sure the power feed for that is shut off until floodwaters have receded. A portable generator is okay to use as long as it's not backfed into your main power feed. So what people will do is they'll call an electrician and they'll make this plug. So even the little tiny portable gas power generators, you turn on your main breaker, but flip off the other breakers to say 3/4 of your house, and you only have your bathroom and your living room power on, and that little generator will be able to power that little portion of the home, not the entire house, not your AC unit, but just that little bit. So again, if you do have that, don't use that back feed into your main power feed. Items need to be plugged into the generator, a portable generator. So if you do decide to use a portable generator, you can have a window unit AC, you can plug your TV into it, whatever it may be, but it has to go into the generator. If you listen to the warnings and evacuated, to your question, you'll need your emergency access pass to re-enter the city. There's different, I guess, levels of when that emergency access pass will be needed. There's some storms where the damage out here isn't that bad, so they just open the barrier islands to anybody. If we are hit significantly, then what the sheriff's office will do is they'll post in front of Tom Stewart Causeway, and if you have your emergency access pass, they'll let the homeowners come back in, check on your home, your valuables, start the cleanup process. That's when just looky-loos or looters will not be allowed in if they don't have an emergency access pass. And yeah, when you get home and the city has reopened, that's when you can begin the cleanup process. And even some of the bigger, not as significant storms, us, Public Works, we have to go out, we evaluate the entire city before we report back to the city manager and let him know, hey, as far as public safety is concerned, they're good. Megan would report back to him saying, yes, the streets are cleaned up as good as they can be right now or what have you. So that's part of the process as well.
Thank you. I'm going to refer you to the hurricane guide. If you will turn to page, or it starts getting red. Time has run out after the hurricane passes. So this is page 17. There is a nice list of things to do here. So I encourage you to take a look at that. I encourage you to take a look at page 17 for the list of things to do. And then if you flip it over to page 18, the cleanup, I'm going to talk just briefly about the wet stuff. So make sure before I don't like this microphone. Okay, better? Okay, so on the cleanup side of things, you need to get that wet stuff out of your house, but you need to photo document or video document everything before you pull it out. You want to save samples of curtains or carpets or anything you can. Make sure you're taking pictures of serial numbers. Everything is going to be date stamped on your digital file. So make sure before you put it on the side of the road, you have photos of it. And I mean every single room. And I mean, as you are taking walls out, if you have to cut the walls out like 3 feet up, as you take those walls out, get pictures of the insulation behind the walls. Get pictures of your baseboard with a ruler next to it, because the insurance company may try to give you credit for 3-inch baseboards instead of 6-inch baseboards. They might say you didn't have insulation behind your walls. And if you don't have a photo proving that you had insulation behind your walls, you're not going to get reimbursed for it. So please make sure that you're taking photos of everything before you put it out, and get into the building department as soon as possible to pull your permits. I'll let Madeira Beach talk a little bit more about that. Again, don't play in the floodwaters. Please don't play in the floodwaters. It's not safe. There's things hiding under there in the water, and there's a lot of viruses and bacteria and everything else. So let's talk a little bit about the building permits after you're photographed and we've gotten those things out of the house. Make sure you open your insurance claim as soon as possible so that you get in there on the list. If you're hiring a mitigation company, it's a good idea to get on their list ahead of time. You know, there's a storm coming, call them up, get on their list so that they can put you on there so they can come provide service to you more quickly to get your walls out.
Excellent. So the favorite part, permitting. So we have gone to digital online permitting. So it is a simple, or it's an easier process that you can do from home. We have some, I think we have some links to that, but if you just go to the City of Madeira Beach website, it's pretty user friendly. We also have a great staff up front that'll walk you through the process. If you do have an at-grade home, your repair work will be subject to what Jenny had previously mentioned, which is the FEMA 50% rule. That means the value of your structure alone, 50% of the depreciated value of your structure alone is the maximum that you can spend towards rehabilitating your property. This also means if earlier in the year you decided to redo your kitchen and spend X amount of dollars, and we're still in that 1-year period, that will get deducted from your allowable spend. So it's part of our compliance with working with the NFIP. It's part of the reason why we do see FEMA on site after we have these disasters, is we've committed to being a really good community about how we respond to floods, how we encourage property owners to begin elevating their homes. So we will look at that when you come in with the permit. We'll also to Lisa's point, seeing the pictures helps us. If you've already got your insurance adjuster information, that helps us better judge, what you're going to be doing and the cost of what you'll be doing. We will also, after the storm moves through, we'll also come through and do storm damage assessments. We call them windshield drive-throughs. So we want to quickly cover the city, kind of document what areas we see had X amount of flood, go through, document that, and then identify properties that we feel like may have gotten more damage than others. And sometimes those are called substantially damaged properties. If you do have a property that's determined to be substantially damaged, at that point in time, you do have to elevate your property. So it's either a demolition and rebuild, or if you're lucky enough to have a structure that's in amazing shape and some engineer says, hey, you can elevate this, then that is also an option. But as you move through those times, please communicate with the city. We're here to help. We like to guide people through the process. The one thing we don't want to is, I know you're gonna have a hard time believing this, but not all contractors are the best. So we don't want people coming to the city. Anybody who lives here and works here is not gonna come in and browbeat you to get work done. They're gonna know this is an emotional time. They're not gonna be taking advantage of you. They're gonna be honest. If you feel like you're getting that vibe, please feel free to call the city. We'll be more than happy to meet you at your property, meet with the person you're talking to, make sure we can give you some comfort level. Because the last thing we want is bad workmanship when you're already going through something like that. So we will help you with the permitting process. And there's usually a small period of time after the storm where we don't charge for permits. That's based on what the building official decides. And I think maybe sometimes it varies on the degree of damage the city's experienced. So we do offer that, and we'll work with you guys and get that information out there through any means that we feel like is what works with. Say, I know we have Facebook, Nextdoor, and then other constant contact. So we'll work with you guys through that. And after that, I think I'll hand it over to Jenny and let her talk about anything I didn't. So the city of Madeira Beach has, on our website, we have a new service called MGO. It's our permitting software. So if you just go to the city of Madeira Beach, it'll take you to that. Do we have that on anything? Okay. Okay, sorry. So yeah, just go to our madeirabeachfl.gov website, and that'll kind of guide you through the process for permitting. And I will say Pinellas County has a very robust program for getting general information out there for after the storm stuff too. So you'll go to our website and we'll often say, hey, check out Pinellas County's site because they've got a very robust system. So we also look to them for information dissemination, but when it comes to the actual permit, that goes through the city of Madeira Beach.
So the county is going to launch a sort of a special front page website after an event, which has all the critical information that you need. In addition to all the information, there's going to be a damage reporting application. So you can go in and you can put your house on the map and take a picture and talk about how much water you had in your house and outside of your house. All that damage reporting is critical for us to get aid from the federal level. So without a certain amount of damage reported, we don't get help from the feds. So we need to have this damage reported so that we can qualify. After Tropical Storm Eta, we only qualified for SBA, the Small Business Administration, for the low interest loans, but we did not qualify for the individual assistance because there just wasn't enough damage reported. Now with Idalia, we qualify both for the SBA and for the IA, the individual assistance, which helped a lot of folks out. So it's really, really important when the county launches that page to go and report your damage on there, because that data gets sent up to the state who vets it and then sends it up to FEMA so that we can qualify for the assistance.
People report damage, are they afraid that their insurance company they'll lose their insurance if they report damage? Is that a problem with reporting? Is that why we have some people who don't want to report certain thresholds?
That's a question for the audience. Raise your hand if you would be hesitant to report your damage on our app. A few people. Was that the SBA or the IA? So that was the insurance company.
and flood.
So on the Pinellas County website, we have flood insurance technical assistance. These are volunteers from the insurance industry that will answer questions to our residents, because all of us know enough about insurance to be dangerous. So we can get you through the basics of it, but when you get in the nitty gritty about why is it that I'm not qualifying for a certain thing, that is a question for the insurance agent. So if your agent doesn't have an answer, go onto the Pinellas County website to the flood insurance technical assistance. And those folks that are listed there will be able to help you out because they're experts in flood insurance specifically.
So, City of Madeira Beach, a lot of municipalities have more stringent rules. We only have a 1-year look back. So if you came in and pulled a permit today and you closed it out in 9 months and then you need to pull another permit for the storm damage, we would go back to the date that you pulled the permit and look for the year total. So we would add that in, but it's only for a 1-year look back from the date the permit's pulled, not from the date it's closed out, which gives you a lot of leeway there. So, and to Corey's, question, the FEMA 50% rule is a tough one. We don't take it lightly. It does mean that if you surpass that threshold, unfortunately, we do have to declare your home substantially damaged. That does mean it has to be, when it's rebuilt or elevated, it has to meet the current floodplain compliance regulations. And that is a hard part of our job. But it's what we have to do. Another municipality recently got dinged because FEMA didn't feel like they had followed the rules and they weren't being a very good community on enforcing their regulations. So they came in and they dropped them down on their rating. People lost the discount they were getting. And if that continues to happen, then as a community, like I mentioned earlier, we won't see FEMA on our island trying to help us because they're not going to feel like we followed the rules, enforced the rules, and we're consistent with it. So we know it's really important to educate you guys on the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that is part of it. We're always willing to answer questions, though. We try to be as helpful and explain things as much as possible. But our hands are kind of sort of tied when it comes to how we have to enforce that.
And with the FEMA 50%, we also have to calculate the value. So say if you go in, there's some damage, you get a permit, you're saying, oh, well, my cousin, my neighbor's doing it. So it's just gonna cost basically nothing. I don't have to pay for labor. When we look at the permit, we also have to calculate the value. So we're looking at the value of the work done, not the cost, what it actually cost you, but really the value of what is in there. So that's important to keep in mind as well. And also post-disaster, make sure you get permits. I think Marcy went over a lot of the stuff, but make sure you get permits. You don't want to be in a situation where then you didn't get a permit, we have to come in there and you have to tear down your house. We want to work with you beforehand and make sure that you don't have to tear down your house. We're going to work with you on your FEMA 50% numbers. Another thing is if you're not exceeding that 50% threshold, any after the fact permits are 5 times, so it's a lot more money. So keep that in mind too.
Right now, the valuation of your permit when you pull it is 2% of the value of the work. So if you were to go get caught doing work after the fact, you then pay 5 times that 2%. So it's always worth it to get a permit, even if you immediately pull a demo permit, assess your damage, and then you come back later to get the remodel permit. Get that demo permit in. That way we know what you're doing and the footprint of what you're up against and repairing.
We need to wrap up the hurricane side of the event. Anything else? Including
From the
that?
public works standpoint, I think the major thing for us is when we come into the city, our first priorities is to make sure the streets are clear. So I think all of you that came through Madeira Beach last time remember during or after Idalia, Gulf Boulevard was totally covered in sand. And unfortunately, the city was opened up a little bit too early in our standpoint because then it slowed down operations. So we have trees down or anything that is covering the roadway. We just have to make sure that we push it, clean it, And also, I think we talked a little bit about debris removal. Please be patient. We have a major flood event, we are cleaning up the whole entire city. So you all just need to make sure everything on your side is documented. And then on our side, we have to, depending on the size, we are either doing that cleanup in-house or we are contracting with a debris removal contractor. It takes time. It usually typically takes us a good month to get the whole city cleaned up while we're also trying to get our parks and our streets and our sanitation. So just please be patient with us. And we're talking about elevating homes, you know, when we start elevating homes, we will have less debris on the road for us to clean up, less debris that will go into those storm drains. So it all kind of is a little bit of a domino effect. Did I miss something? Also, another major thing, if you have a contractor coming in to do any type of cleanup, please ensure that those contractors are taking that debris with them. We do not remove contractor debris of any type. This is tree debris, this is demo materials, or any type of flood cleanup. I think you had a question.
Right. Yep, prepare the electrical.
And then lastly, just from a public works, if your sandbags have touched flooded water, that means they are contaminated. Do not go dump those sandbags out on the beach. Pinellas County does a really good flyer and put out information of the best way to dispose of those sandbags. Those sandbags do not go into the dump. So please just, if you have questions, give me a call. My cell phone number, I think, is everywhere. And I think Deputy Snyder has
Just remember, we're at the sheriff's office, we're gonna be locking down all the bridges and letting people back in after it's safe to do so, but it's a graduated process there. We're gonna let in Public Works, essential personnel, Duke Energy, those kind of people. So the residents would be the next in line once it's all clear. She was mentioning we had quite a blockage on Gulf Boulevard with sand, and Gulf Boulevard was passable, but barely. So, and then we had everybody coming back, and it did hamper the efforts getting everything. They did a good job cleaning up, but we had dumped truckloads of sand that we recovered from Gulf Boulevard. Yeah, about 20, she said. So just remember, until we say it's good to come back, and if you're sitting there waiting, the clock is not going to go by very quickly. It's just try to make yourself busy. If you're waiting for us to open it, it's never going to open. It's going to feel like that. But in residents with the Barrier Island reentry pass, you would be the first ones to reenter with that pass once it's open to residents. And then hopefully everybody else stays out. So, but just remember, it's closed till it's open, and then residents would be the first one after all the essential personnel and cleanup has been conducted.
If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to, we'll be hanging around. Please feel free to always text, email, lots of information on the Pinellas County Emergency Management, lots of information at the City of Madeira Beach's website for emergency management as well. We even had the FEMA month-by-month guides that give you hints and information on how to prepare, pretty much a lot of what you heard today.
And please, if you guys don't mind, if you'll sign the sign-in sheet, it's just really more to brag about how awesome we are and how entertaining we are and the crowd that we can bring. So that'd be great. And if you hire a contractor, please make sure they're licensed. You can go to the Pinellas County Licensing Board, or again, always call us and we'll help you with that.
So now we'll transition to listen to Clearwater Marine Aquarium. Come on down. I didn't bring my long mic. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And stick around for a quick turtle message. Yep. If you wanna- yeah, right here. Yep. So now we're going to have representatives from the Clearwater Marine Aquarium go over what they do. I'll give you this microphone and
Okay, hello, my name's Joe, and this is my husband Nelson. We're volunteers with the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. Am I holding it? Okay, so we have put together a very short, presentation about sea turtles, and The nesting process, we have an annual summary report, and we want to tell you how you could help sea turtles. Now, okay, I guess you can go to the next slide. CMA, or Clearwater Marine Aquarium, we patrol 21 miles of beach, including Madeira Beach. And sea turtle nesting season is from May 1st to October 31st in Pinellas County. Now, we follow the FWC guidelines, and we do start patrolling earlier. So we are already patrolling. We start about 2 weeks early. So we would start April 15th. Next slide. So we're already patrolling. Okay. So we're going to start with the when things go bad. So, or unsuccessful nesting. So this is, these are some pictures of a false crawl. Now, it's also known as a false emergence. This is when the adult sea turtles, the females, come out and they're trying to lay eggs, but they find that they can't find a good place to do it. So a lot of times this is because they're looking for a safe, dark place to lay their eggs, and they're not comfortable. So sometimes they create a body pit or an abandoned egg chamber, but they don't lay the eggs. Now, there's mostly the reasons for this is it could be because of lighting. It could be because there's obstacles on the beach, like furniture, like umbrellas, trash. If people make sandcastles and they don't like knock them down at the end of the day, if they make holes on the beach. So for whatever reason, it could be noise, actually, if for whatever reason they're not comfortable. So they're going to turn around and go back into the water. Now, they could just they might try later to come back and find another site, but they might also just go back in the water and dump their eggs. So now they would just lose those eggs. And a clutch of eggs is like in between 80 and 120 eggs. So they could lose that's 100 sea turtle eggs just lost if they have to go back and then they dump them in the water. I guess next slide, please. So the process is that they crawl on the beach, they look for a spot, they create a body pit and begin digging an egg chamber with the rear flippers. As I said, 80 to 120 eggs will be deposited, so 100 on average. And they use the rear flippers to cover the eggs with sand, and then they use the front and rear flippers to throw sand behind the turtle to camouflage. So they're going to camouflage from predators and just in general, mostly that would be animal predation. We have raccoons on the beach. We have other things that can dig them up. Hopefully not people, but that has been known to happen. And during nesting season, we have primarily loggerheads here in Pinellas County, and they don't nest every year. They nest like every 2 years or more than 2 years. So if a female will come ashore like multiple times during the nesting season. So our nesting season, we have nesting and hatchling. We say May 1st to October 31st, but the last 2 months are really the hatchlings from the 60 days before that. So in any event, like they said every 2 weeks, but it's not like every 2 weeks like clockwork. It's kind of, that's kind of guidelines. 4 to 7 nests. They can do 4 to 7 nests per season. Next slide, please. Okay, so the hatchlings, they do incubate for 40 to 60 days. They usually emerge they typically emerge at night when they feel the sand cool, and they come up all together. They kind of climb over each other to get out. They call it a boil when they come out. And they follow, now in ideal circumstances, they're supposed to follow the brightest light. So that would be the moon. Now, unfortunately, because of artificial lighting, they often get disoriented and they go away from the water instead of towards the water. And but if they do go in the water, they will like start swimming, and they swim like they call it a swim frenzy. They'll swim until they hit like this orgasm line, where they will then spend the next part of their life hiding from predators, because they have predators in the water as well. They don't have an easy life, these guys. And it says that, okay, the sexually mature females will use the Earth's magnetic field to navigate back to their own natal beaches. Okay, so they do practice natal homing. So they will go back to the same beach that they were hatched on, or very, very close to it, to lay their own nests. And this is kind of amazing if you think about it, because for them to be sexually mature, it's like 30 years. So they will go back to their original beach. However, sometimes in 30 years, a lot of stuff can happen. So there might not be how they remember it. There could be like a something that's come up in there, like buildings, like there could be a loud, noisy bar there. There could be all kinds of stuff that wasn't there before. Do you know what I'm saying? So like they do try to go back to their original beach, but they'll be kind of in the general vicinity. Next slide, please. Okay, so hurricane effects. So uninvited, we had Hurricane Idalia visit us on August 26th last year to about August 31st, I think is what it was. And we had 75 nests before the storm and only 14 reestablished. Now you can see a picture of one of the nesting teams in the water right there. And that's where a nest was. And so you could see that those eggs are no longer viable. So unfortunately, we didn't have anything hatch after the hurricane. So the good part was it was at the kind of close to the end of the season. So, a lot of our hatchlings had already made it out, but we did lose 75 nests, which could be like 7,500 eggs or more. And we used Trimble GPS to find the nest locations. I guess that's that. Okay, so we're going to talk about just 2023. Our activity we have it down as 479 total activities. So we're counting the nests and also the false crawls. So we had 224 established nests, 240 false crawls, which means they attempted to nest and were unable to nest. And we had 3 green nests, and this is kind of remarkable because we don't really get greens on this coastline too much. We get mostly loggerheads. Next slide, please. Yeah, there's 7 different species of sea turtles. We have 5 here in the Gulf of Mexico. We have loggerheads, green, leatherbacks, hawkbills, and Kemp's Ridley. How could I forget the Kemp? So anyway, that's just overall in the county, and Madeira Beach is up next. So we had 50 activities here. We had 29 nests. We had 20 false crawls, and we had 1 green nest, which was, again, like not something we usually get. So that was kind of nice. Now we had 7 obstructed nesting attempts. Now, the obstructions can be, again, beach furniture, seawalls, sandcastles. Usually it's human interaction, something that's not on the beach, and it's on the beach, it shouldn't be on the beach. And so it could be any of those. And we had 18 marine turtle disorientations. Now that's not 18 individual hatchlings or turtles. That's like 18 nests, or it could be an individual turtle, but mostly it's hatchlings. And the disorientations are primarily due to lighting. And it's not that we can't have lighting, we just have to have the correct lighting. So unfortunately, there's a lot of artificial lighting. So instead of going to the brightest light, which should be the moon, they're heading to the beach. To the beach and to people's houses and swimming pools, storm drains. They could get hit by cars. They go to roads. They can be found in vegetation. There's all kinds of things that can happen that are not good. So, and the other thing is if they don't make it to the water at night, then they're on the sand during the day, and they can become dehydrated and die. So like everyone knows how hot the sand can get during the day. So this is not a good situation for them. So I just bring this up because like the disorientations, it's not really, it doesn't really tell you what happens to them afterwards. So next up, we have the FWC is going to be talking about lighting. So I'm not really going to cover that here, but does anyone have any questions or concerns? That's correct, yeah. Because actually, like if we see them on the beach and they haven't gone into the water, we don't know like what the condition is. Like sometimes, like I said, if they're, they might need to have hydration before they go back. When they're born, they have like an egg. They get their nutrition from the egg. So they have this like yolk sac, and that sustains them till they get to out to the water to this orgasm line. But it only lasts for a certain amount of time. So what could happen is they could be like just very depleted, malnourished, like they could be dehydrated. And if you just throw them in the water, they might just wash back up, or, they might not be able to make it to where they need to go. So like in any kind of a situation where you see a sea turtle or a hatchling or anything, it's best to call us. That's it? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. They could be, yeah. They do dig up nests. When we do the nests, we mark them with GPS and we will stake them. And then sometimes if we think there's like a chance of predation, like we will put a cage over. So it allows the hatchlings to get out, but it doesn't allow anything to get in. So if you see those on the beach, that's what that's all about. In other countries, sometimes where they don't have the same protections, people will take the eggs and yeah. Yeah. Well, I was going to say coyotes, raccoons, dogs. Actually, during the day, I was going to say ghost crabs, birds, fire ants. Yeah, yeah, apparently, yes. Well, they do estimate that like 1 in 1,000 survive to adulthood. So no, it's pretty tough. It's a tough world out there. Yeah, so. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So, okay, yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for everything you're doing to help save our sea turtles.
Lindsay, you can go ahead and finish snacking. I'm going to talk about the city with Deputy Snyder and how we kind of monitor. So every day Public Works rakes the beach, but we also knock down those sand castles. So sorry if we hurt your feelings if you build a beautiful sculpture, but during nesting season, it is very important that those are not there. Also, the holes. I'm not really sure we're having, and this is not just Madeira Beach, but this is every municipal person, barrier island from here to probably Jacksonville. The holes that these lovely residents and sometimes mostly the visitors, but there are residents that do it as well. They bring out their shovel, their full-fledged shovel, and build and dig these massive holes. So I think the more that we educate every visitor, we've gotten very good about creating magnets that have our beach rules. We've got bigger signs that are out on the beach. I have purchase signs for every condo that is along the beach, but it is also just very important that we educate and spread the word because that's really the only way that we can get these people stopped. Absolutely. We have magnets that are outside on the table that you can absolutely have and put them in every condo. So we have an ordinance, it's called Leave No Trace. And in that Leave No Trace ordinance, it states that all items that you bring to the beach with you are to be taken back with you. Any item is not supposed to be placed on the beach an hour before sunrise and is supposed to be taken an hour after sunset. But an issue that we've been having, and I'll let Deputy Snyder talk about this a little bit more, is that a lot of these condos that we have, they have their own chair contractor that they contract with, and that is private property that they do not then have to remove those items. So it's one of those gray areas. We've been trying to deal with the attorneys on that, but unfortunately, we've been kind of hitting a roadblock with that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, just a little bit on that. Some of the definitions in the code define public beach, and some of the condos may say, well, we have private beach, and it's a hot topic. It's contested, even so far as where we can enforce on those private areas for obstructions left on the beach. So it's something that we've been reviewing, and it's a difficult one. But as far as what the sheriff's deputies do, we work with the zoning department and code enforcement, and we will do morning patrols to make sure that during the season, actually backing up a little bit further, there's a letter that's issued by the zoning department of the upcoming turtle season, May 1 through October 31st. It tells about the regulations, the beachfront regulations, and the lighting requirements. She's going to go over the lighting requirements here, but some of the old condos, the train of thought was I'll throw some yellow shielding up or red shielding up and then we're in compliance. Not the case really, because the bulb emanates a wavelength, and certain turtles, she'll get into it. I'm not the expert. I've just been here a while. The turtles can see certain wavelengths. Even through a yellow shielding, that wavelength will go through it. So, and then if it's not in compliance, basically, if it's not in compliance, you replace or repair the bulbs. If it's extensive, you may have to get a hold of the building department to pull permits for wiring and retrofitting. If it's not in compliance, you turn them off. Easier said than done. You've got a parking garage with no lights on it, and our average age of the tenant is 75, and tell him to pull in and out of his garage with no lights on. It's difficult. So we monitor the beach every morning. We check for obstructions. We have tags that we put on obstructions or cabanas. If you leave it out there, if it's out there a second day, we instruct Public Works to remove it. And recovery is at a fine if they do that. If it persists, we could actually cite that person if we can identify who the property owner is. That's usually the tough part, is like, it's not mine, it's not mine. But we work with the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, FWC, monitoring the beach. We know where to drive very low, because you can't drive up there on the high soft sand because you may disturb or wreck a nest. And then even Public Works has to wait for the all clear to drive on the beach until their survey is done and their nests are marked. And like I say, we issued a letter to all the beachfront condominiums and houses on Gulf Boulevard starting this first week this month. So they should all have a turtle letter. Now it's up to the condos to make copies of it and give it to their guests, or to inform their hotel residents about turning off your lights at night, pull your drapes, and then even to go one step further is tint your windows, which could be costly for an entire condo. But so we're actively working with the different agencies to try to get compliance. If we get a complaint, we go out and we try to get compliance, turn it off, make some modifications based on the state's requirements.
The planning and zoning department do have free bulbs outside at the table. So please take advantage of that. Do you have any questions for us for what the city does? If not, I'm going to pass it over to Lindsay. Not allowed. We do e-bikes. So
E-bikes are Expo. If we see those when we're out there, you can pedal. We allow pedaling, but not a pedal e-bike. My interpretation of the code is no. If it's got a motor on it, it's no good. We can drive, city staff can drive, authorized representatives may be able to drive to some of the beach companies during emergencies to recover their gear with permission, special permission only.
yes,
So, and they are not allowed. Yeah,
it's
if
not
motor
allowed.
on it,
Yeah.
report that. Unless it's a personal assistive device and you need your disabled, handicap, something like that, then
Yes.
it would be allowed.
Yes.
When we see them, we address it.
Please,
They
yeah,
don't-
and
They don't get fines without us telling them. And typically, the first offense is a warning, and then we tell them to get off. It's just, yeah, during spring break or high season, it's just way too busy to be operating an e-bike that go up to 20 miles an hour. Yeah, no.
if you see him, call. I mean,
The problem also is that the e-bike companies are telling people that they're allowed to ride these things on the beach, the retail places.
and the rental places are as well. So again, it's that education. Where that's where we're trying to get out the information. And I think, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, all Barrier Island beaches are no e-bikes. We all try to follow the same ordinances so that we're uniform.
Yeah, no, that would be a non-emergency call to the sheriff's office. We try to catch those guys, especially directed travel. We can catch them, we would definitely remove them and give them a warning. Yeah.
Any other questions, Madeira Beach related? Sure. We have banned smoking on the beach. We are still, again, this is where it goes into that gray area where it's same thing with dogs on the beach. If they are behind a condo, we have a hard time trying to enforce because they say it's private property. So yes, on city public beach areas, Archibald, any of our parks, you are not supposed to be smoking cigarettes or e-cigarettes, but you can smoke unfiltered cigars. Unfiltered cigars are not included on that Pinellas County ordinance. I'm not sure. So, sure, go ahead. Yeah. I think it's public.
Well, it should be banned on the public beach. Do you know your line? Do you actually know where your line is, where your frontage is?
Are you Sereno or Ocean Sands? Sereno. Yeah, theirs is to the mean
Yeah.
high tide. Yeah. We would have to look also at our ordinance too and see if the ordinance says is if it's public beach, because if it's public beach, but technically your property line then goes out of that. Again, it's kind of one of those gray areas, but if you contact,
We have addressed on an informal level this year. We have told people to smoke and ban on the beaches in the city. It's vague, but, you know. Are they technically trespassing?
I think that's where it gets really gray because yeah, we also right. And
Then you can't fence it.
and then that opens up a whole other can of worms. Yes.
City maintains it, buy trash for it, you rake it, buy lawn for it. So, I mean, it's
So-
a mixed use. Yes, it might be private, but.
But it's also public because we do services on there. So right. I feel like I was supposed to call Lisa back for some reason, and I can't remember why now that you said Sereno. Okay. Gosh, I can't remember. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Lindsay. She's gonna talk about turtle lighting. She's with FWC.
Good morning, everybody. I think it's still morning, right? Yeah. My name is Lindsay. I'm with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. It is a state agency that is tasked with managing environmental and wildlife resources. I am a sea turtle lighting specialist for the Southwest region of Florida. So I review lighting plans for coastal construction to make sure that they are sea turtle friendly. And I'm here today to talk to you about sea turtle nesting here in Florida, the challenges to that nesting and the solutions that we have for it. So perhaps some of this is review for you guys based on our last presentation, but reviewing is good, right? Okay, so if we don't know, there are 7 species of sea turtles in the entire world. There's only 7. And we are lucky enough to have 5 of them here in Florida, either in our waters or utilizing our beaches during the summer months. And that includes the loggerhead sea turtle, the leatherback, which is the largest species of sea turtle, the hawksbill, the green sea turtle, and the Kemp's ridley, which is the smallest and most endangered species. I do have examples of some of them up here, and I'll have them back at my table if you want to come take a look later. Here in the state of Florida, the 3 most common species that nest during the summer months include the loggerhead. The loggerhead is the most common. The leatherback and the green. However, here in Pinellas County, it's a little bit different. Your 3 most common nesting species include the loggerhead, the green, and the Kemp's ridley, which is really cool because the Kemp's ridley is so rare. They nest so rarely in the state of Florida that Pinellas County's got a real gem here. So good for you. Because the loggerhead sea turtle is the most common nesting species here in the county and the state, I'm going to focus a little bit more on them when I talk about the nesting process itself. And it begins with only the females coming ashore at night, and they crawl up the beach to select a nest site. We actually don't know why they choose a particular nest site on the beach. We're still trying to figure that out. But once they do select a site, they're going to push surface sand away with their front flippers, and they end up creating this shallow depression in the sand called a body pit. And then they actually curl their rear flippers in like a shovel and dig this hole out, just like you see here, kind of like an upside down light bulb. And then they'll start laying their eggs, and their eggs look exactly like a ping pong ball. They lay 80 to 100 eggs per nest. A single female can lay anywhere from 1 to 8 nests in a single season, but the average is closer to 4 or 5. And they lay those nests every 2 weeks. She is a busy gal, so she does not lay every year. That is way too taxing. So she only lays nests every 2 to 4 years. But once she's done laying those eggs, she's going to work backwards. She's going to use her rear flippers to cover that nest with sand and seal it nice and tight. And then she's going to use her front flippers to cast sand about to camouflage the site and scent of the nest. And this is what Clearwater Marine Aquarium is looking for in the morning during the summer months, that evidence of the crawl track and the nest site. And the reason they cast sand about is because they want to prevent land predators from finding their eggs. Coyotes, raccoons, armadillos are good examples of land predators that will try and dig them up and eat those eggs. So then those eggs are going to incubate under the ground for about 2 months. And then they're going to start hatching out. They have a special tooth called a caruncle on their beak that allows them to break through that shell. They all will sit down in the nest for a few days because they're going to absorb this yolk sac that they have. That's their special energy reserves that they use to crawl down the beach to the water and how they swim out in the water for the first few days of their life. So once they're done absorbing that, they're all going to work together up the nest. And then they're going to wait at the surface sand because they're waiting for a drop in the temperature of the surface sand to tell them that it's nighttime. So once they feel that and they're ready to go, somebody's going to get the idea like, okay, it's time to go. And they're going to start wiggling. And then everybody else is going to start wiggling and they're all going to come out of the nest together. And it's often called a nest boil because it looks like all the hatchlings are boiling out of the ground. And they look, well, I have an example of a hatchling up here if you want to come take a look later. But the goal of them, once they emerge from the nest, is to make a mad dash towards the water because they don't want land predators like birds and coyotes and things like that to eat them. And they want to make it offshore to the surface patch of sargassums, algae. That's where they're going to live for their first few years of life, and they're going to eat bugs and stuff in the sargassum. And so they need to make a mad dash because they only have so much energy in those yolk sac reserves to get there. But sometimes things can distract them from making it towards the water. And we're going to talk about what those are in just a second. It's important to mention here that only among the hatchlings that manage to make it to the water, only 1 in 1,000, that's 0.1%, will make it to adulthood. So it's really important that we do everything that we can here in Madeira Beach and in the county to properly manage our nests and our hatchlings to make sure that we keep that number up as high as possible. All right, so what are the things that can impact our turtles during the nesting season? Holes. We've mentioned that already. That's a human safety hazard and it's a turtle safety hazard. We love utilizing the beach and having a great time, and we're so excited about that. But we need to make sure that we're filling in those holes at the end of the day. Otherwise, something like that happens. So we have our nesting females, like the top image that you see here. This is a full adult nesting female. This is a 300-pound adult that is stuck in a hole because we left it on the beach at night. And there is no way that poor thing can get out on her own. So permitted personnel have to come out and literally haul her out. So we want, and similarly here, we had our permitted personnel down in Anna Maria help this turtle. This is another full adult. And our hatchlings are only a few inches long. These kiddos cannot crawl out of a hole by themselves. And so they're going to sit in there where they're more likely to be predated by birds or coyotes, or they're going to desiccate out in the sun and they're going to perish. So it's really important that we simply fill those holes in. I'd give the kids the task and make it a game, like go fill in those holes really fast, and they'll do it. No problem. They're on it. So encourage the kids to do it. Similarly, chairs and sandcastles. Those are another type of obstruction that our turtles can be impeded by. So we had, this is an example of a green sea turtle who was attempting to nest and got stuck under this chair. And in fact, they are so tenacious that they will sometimes haul those chairs, once they're entangled, they'll haul that chair back with them back to the water. And because they're so encumbered by that extra weight, they will actually drown. So it's really important that we remove trash, chairs, toys, all that stuff from the nesting beach. That way it's nice and clean and flat for them to nest successfully. And the last thing that really impacts our turtles during the nesting season is lighting. We are a very densely populated city or state. And in fact, Pinellas County is the most densely populated county in the entire state. And we like to live along the coastal environment. And we need to utilize light for safety purposes to illuminate our homes, our businesses, our walkways, and our roadways. And because of that, it can negatively affect our turtles. But how? So, turtles use brightness as a guide to find the water. So, when an adult is done nesting or a hatchling has newly emerged from the nest, they use the brightness of the celestial light that's bouncing over the water, over that horizon, that contrasts with the darkness of the land to help guide them to the water. Now, when we have coastal development, artificial white lights compete with that celestial light. They cannot differentiate the difference between artificial light like this and celestial light. So they're going to travel towards whatever is brighter. And if that artificial light is brighter, they're going to go towards those condos and those businesses. And we find them in pools, in parking lots, in roadways where they get run over by cars. So it's really important that we make the switch to something called sea turtle friendly or wildlife friendly light to help them distinguish the difference. And again, this affects nesting females too. So oftentimes artificial light will deter them from coming ashore altogether. So it's possible that if we make that change to sea turtle friendly light, we may in fact see an increase in nesting over time because they're not deterred by white lights. Um, they also get stuck in pools and tennis courts as well. This is very difficult to get these females out of these pools. So we'd rather not see them. In fact, we did have a condition over time where even in our county here, they have crossed Gulf Boulevard. And by some miracle, they did not get run over by a car. And our lovely sheriff's department helped us get them back to the beach. And they do great work. So thank you for that. If they don't manage to make it to these areas, they can still wander the beach like you see here. That's a crawl track of a nesting female traveling along the beach instead of back to the water. And they have only so much energy to do all that nesting too. So they're now wasting all that energy crawling and trying to find the water instead of producing more eggs for another nest. Okay, so we want to make the switch to wildlife friendly lighting, but what is that? Well, FWC has 3 golden rules for wildlife friendly lighting, and it is keep it low, keep it shielded, and keep it long. So, what does keep it low mean? Well, we want to mount the light as low to the ground as possible. So, we're illuminating the walking pathways and areas that need to be lit without the light source being so high that it can be seen on the nesting beach where our turtles would be distracted by them. We also want to use the lowest wattage and lumens for the intended purpose. We don't need to be using a 200-watt light bulb to illuminate a tiny portion of our walkways. We can use lower wattage for and still have plenty of illumination. So you can see in this example here, we have a very tall pole fixture. Now, this is still an amber light, so why is this not okay? Well, just because we're using amber light does not mean that our turtles won't become distracted by it. If we have a lot of amber light, they can still become distracted by that light too. So we want to reduce the height so they're less likely to see the light source, and we want to reduce the wattage. Just like this landscape bollard light here. You can see it's low to the ground, and we've fully shielded the light so you can't even see the light source, which is good. Next. Oh, examples of low mounted lights. So we're not asking people to turn their lights off. We need light for human health and safety, of course. So we have options for whatever you need to make it sea turtle friendly, but still illuminate our areas that are needed. This is an example of a linear light, for example, that's illuminating a walkway. We have in-wall, retaining wall step lights that will illuminate pathways, downward directed pathway lights, even in paver lights that can illuminate our parking areas. So there's plenty of options for whatever you may need. Keep it shielded. So we want to shield the bulb or the light source from being seen on the beach. We want to install them in something like this. This is a canister wall fixture where the light source is fully recessed in the fixture. So the turtle cannot see the light, but it's still downward directed on the area that needs to be illuminated. It's still providing plenty of light for humans. We also want to make sure that we're using the proper shielding. So not just on our beach side, our west facing side here, we want to use a fixture that can be fully cut off. So even if you travel far north or far south from your property, you can't see it either. It's not just directly seaward of the fixture itself. And these are good examples of full cutoff. So you can see this just like canister. This is a pole mounted fixture that has an extra, a drop down shield added to it. And even if you have a fixture that you've changed to an amber light, but you need a shield, you can fabricate your own just with aluminum sheeting from Home Depot. You can do that too. So you don't have to replace the full fixture. All right, and then keep it long. We want to keep it long wavelength. To get a little technical here, it's a wavelength of light that's greater than 560 nanometers. So that is LED light in the amber, orange, and red spectrum. Now, it's important here to note that party bulbs, bug bulbs are not appropriate. Those are often coated bulbs. So that is a white LED that is coated in yellow, orange, or red to appear to be the correct wavelength. That is not the correct type of bulb. We need to make sure that we're getting the LED emitting a wavelength of 560 nanometers or greater. White light, blue light, green light, purple light. Very bad for our turtles. Those are the shortest wavelengths of light. Those are the ones that they're going to be attracted to the most. Red, orange, and amber, they're less attracted to, they're more likely to orient correctly. All right, and there's our website where you can find good fixtures and bulbs. Please visit that. You can also come get a card of mine if you need help with sea turtle friendly light. I'm always happy to help in this area. And don't forget about interior lights. So this is a fantastic example of why interior light can be a problem. So this is a property on the east coast of Florida that did a good job of installing amber lights on the exterior property. But did that help? No, it did not. Look at all that interior light. That looks just like exterior light because of all those windows. So it's really important that we manage our interior light as well. And you can do lots of things in order to manage your interior light. You can close a curtain. You can draw a shade, close your blinds, move your lamps away from the windows into an opaque a wall or door where it can't be seen. You can also install window film and tinting that I'll show you in just a second that can reduce the amount of light that reaches the exterior environment. Use lower wattage bulbs, even warm white bulbs are better than those bright white LED bulbs. So there's lots of different things you can do. Here's an example of the window film and tint. FWC recommends a VLT or visible light transmittance of 15% or less. And here you can see where the doors are open and you can see lots of white interior light reaching the exterior, but the rest is coated in that 15% window tint and you can't see it at all, which is really fantastic. Here's another example of before the tinting was added, after the tinting was added. So our turtles are going to be able to orient nicely in that area. But the question always is, well, 15%, I'm not going to be able to see the beach. That's why I live on the beach. You can still see the beach just fine. It is like putting sunglasses on your windows or your doors, but you can still see the beach just fine during the day. So that's never a concern. So other than changing your lights, what are simple things you can do to help our turtles during the nesting season? One of the big things is to fill in your holes. Carrie and her beach ambassadors do a great job of doing that down in Treasure Island. And we encourage everyone else to do the same thing. You can pick up your trash and your toys and your chairs at the end of the day to make sure it's nice and clean, easy environment for them to utilize. And you can use red LED flashlights. So one of the big concerns that we don't often recognize is white flashlights on the beach at night. You may have seen the light parade during the night when people are going hunting for ghost crabs or fishing or whatever it is. Those lights too can distract our turtles. So we always encourage people to use red LED headlamps, which are readily available at your local hardware stores. You just have to make sure that they have a red LED option available. And don't use your cell phone light at night. Our eyes are really good at adjusting to the night, so we do encourage people not to use lights while they're walking on the beach at night. It is different for property illumination, but if you're just taking a simple walk, your eyes will adjust just fine in the night. But if you do feel like you need it, red LED light is the way to go. And that's a simple thing that you can do to help our turtles nest successfully. So, with that, I say thank you so much for listening, and I will take any questions that you have. Yeah. That's a great question. So, if they are lost, how long can they survive on their own before needing intervention? It depends. We've we luckily Clearwater Marine Aquarium are your marine turtle monitors in the area, and they do a really fantastic job of monitoring each and every morning. They do a good job of looking for our wayward babies. The problem is where do they get to? So if they're found in a roadway, they're not likely to survive long simply because they're going to get run over by a car, unfortunately. If they're so, can you intervene? Is the question. Technically, no. They are protected under state and federal law that prevents you from handling the turtle. However, you can call the FWC Wildlife Alert Hotline when you see these wayward babies. You can report that. And if the dispatch tells you to manage the situation, you now have a state agency telling you how to manage it. I encourage you also to report your finding to Clearwater Marine Aquarium because they are your marine turtle monitors and they can send people out to respond to that. They'll come out at 2 in the morning to come get that hatchling. So I encourage you to call Clearwater Marine Aquarium and the FWC Wildlife Alert Hotline. That if you just look that up on Google, it'll come right up for you. But yes, it depends on where they manage to make it to. If they're in a pool, they'll usually be okay until the morning until the aquarium picks them up and they'll take them in for rehab for observation. But if they get in a storm drain, they have to call the fire department to get that drain up. And I've been in a sewer drain getting hatchlings, pulling them out in the middle of the night. And if they get up into that storm drain, you may not be able to get them out. And if that doesn't drain into a major waterway, then they are going to perish. So, yeah, long-winded answer. Sorry. Any other questions? Yes. Absolutely. They're a human safety hazard as well, but we really appreciate people spreading the word in that way because the aquarium, FWC can't be everywhere all the time. So the more you can do to spread the word, and most tourists are like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I'm happy to do that for you. Or if you make it a game for the kids, they're happy to do that. But we really appreciate people spreading the word like that. Yeah. So there kind of is, yeah. Good question. That's a good question for the city. But we do have signs at all the public beach accesses that talk about please fill in your holes, please knock down your sandcastles. Um, it is tough to get people to look at signs when they're coming over to enjoy the beach, but they're colorful. We try to grab people's attention. I know we need like billboards. hmm mm It's a battle. It's a battle. Yes, ma'am. They should be hatching at night. um, yeah, so we have species that will nest during the day. There's the Ridley species, the Kemp's Ridley, olive Ridley that come ashore during the daylight hours. They should all be hatching at night. However, our hatchlings do get their wires crossed occasionally and they do emerge during the day. hmm Yep. Sometimes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had so many people come up to us. We've been looking every night, and the one night we didn't go out, they hatched. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. I've been doing this for over a decade, and I've only seen a few nests hatch, so I feel your pain on that. Any other questions? Thank you so much for having me.
I would like to touch a little bit on the signs. I do have pretty large signs everywhere, and per our leave no trace ordinance, it clearly states that every individual condo owner is responsible for posting that ordinance in their unit. So again, it's education, and that ordinance is pretty solid where it does talk about the holes and filling of the holes. So again, we can't have signs everywhere. We have magnets. We are giving away free magnets. So do you live in a condo specifically where what condo do you live in, if you don't mind me asking? The Tides? Okay, I have signs that I have provided to condos to post at their entrances to the beach. So I can give you a sign. Perfect. I actually have one in my office. I can go grab it for you. Okay. Well, thank you all. We appreciate you coming. If you have questions, let us know. Thanks.